Hi, I'm Angie Waldron. Jennifer and I are doing a report on the book Ways with Words by Shirley Bryce Heath, 1983. I'm going to do a summary of the book, and Jennifer will do a course connection. This book is based on an ethnographic study of two communities in Piedmont region of the Carolinas. Her goal was to discover the effects of home, preschool, and community on language learning. I'm using Screencast-O-Matic for this for the first time, so I hope you can see it, and I hope it works out okay. So the first half of the book was a side-by-side comparison of two different communities in the same area, Traxton and Rodeville. I'm going to discuss a little bit about each of those differences. The last couple of chapters, Heath moved her study to the classroom to explore how teachers address the differing language foundations of their students. Right from the beginning, you can see, or I hope you can see on this, there is a difference in how children come into the world. Right here on this left side is Traxton. There are very few provisions made for the baby ahead of time, where in Rodeville, it's a big social event. In Traxton, adults believe that babies comes up as talker. That adults can't make babies talk. They just will when they will. In Rodeville, mothers use questions and statements to talk with their baby to try to elicit information, to try to elicit sounds and attention. There's lots of great information here, but I want to just highlight some important points. In preschool, children in Traxton are frequently presented with situations and asked, now what are you going to do? Problem solving. Whereas in Rodeville, parents see themselves as the child's teachers, asking questions. Little different perspective. There is contrast clearly between Traxton and Rodeville. In Traxton, adults talk about children coming up, whereas in Rodeville, they speak of bringing up their children. In Traxton, by the time they enter school, they know sounds, words, and grammatical systems, and that is the same in Rodeville. That is a commonality between the two different communities. Children hear adults talk about them and behavior, but not to them in Traxton, whereas Rodeville, they are seen as conversational partners. Mothers are oftentimes alone for long periods of time with their babies and small children as they stay home with them and use them as conversational partners. Oral traditions, Traxton, this is a very important concept. It's called talking junk. Good stories may be based on actual events, but they're creatively fictionalized and exaggerated stories. In Rodeville, the purpose of the stories is just simply to make people laugh. There are some similarities. They use formulaic openings, but that's mostly the same. Storytellers in Traxton must be aggressive in inserting their stories into ongoing conversations, whereas in Rodeville, they need to be invited to tell their stories. The literate traditions are also very different. In Traxton, nobody talks about reading as an activity. There's no books. They find their reading in different tasks around signs, materials, items, objects. In Rodeville, everyone talks about reading, but few people do it. Children grow up surrounded by print all around them. Books, toys, educational games. They talk a little bit, a very short section in this book about the townspeople that are around these two communities. And they have a different attitude towards children. They treat them as potential conversationalists from birth. And the mothers are the primary caregivers. They use baby talk and question and answer routine to talk with their babies. This next section is those last two chapters I was talking about, where Heath went into the classroom and worked with the teachers and studied how children's language learning affected the teaching practices and how she could better help teachers teach to those students with different backgrounds. So teachers had to shift and better understand their students, how they played, where they played and used materials, and frankly, where they left those materials, their differing schedules, their nonverbal communication, and their varied speech. This was foreign to a lot of teachers at the time the schools were integrated, so they had a lot that they needed to learn. Children from both Traxton and Roadville struggled to follow indirect requests and unstated set of rules. They didn't understand what was being asked of them, so teachers had to learn how to adjust their expectations and the way they delivered those expectations. Once teachers gained that understanding of how they use language differently, Heath helped with that, they began to alter their teaching methods, and they came up with a lot of different strategies to help their students in their classes. Some of them were peer mentoring. Some of them were different strategies of recording, using members of their community to help them with their language learning. And the last chapter was talking about learners as ethnographers, and it was really about one classroom of boys that completed a science project and really worked on expanding their vocabulary and knowledge skills, and they became ethnographers of their own communities by completing this project and learning how to use academic language. So that is a very brief overview of the book. It was a very interesting book. It was not a difficult read, but it was fascinating, and it's very interesting to read a book and figure out which you can identify with and how you were raised. Were you raised with the more of the Traxton ideals, thoughts, traditions, or more Roadville? I could clearly see myself in one or the other, but not completely. So it was just kind of interesting to see what you can, which things resonated with you. Thank you very much.